Hey guys, and welcome to another podcast episode for How to Make Your Own Miniatures Game. It has been, frankly, it's been way too long since the last episode. A lot has happened, so I figure it's probably a good idea to do like a brief catch up kind of thing and then go forward from there. So, what have Rick Graham, been up to since the last episode? Well, I'm not working on Warfleet right now. I have temporarily tabled that game. Some stuff had changed. Primarily back in November of 2023, I began a Kickstarter for, was it October, November? For a Kickstarter for Revelation Skirmish. And it was to help us be able to get funding to be able to do 2 new factions. And we were very successful. We got like $10.5 thousand, so which was great. And then I lost my main source of income, like at the exact same time. And my wife and I talked about it. I prayed about it. And then I decided that it was time for me to go ahead and move forward with going full time at this. And it worked out really super well because we had a great deal set up with a modeler that I know who's done some work with us, and he helped provide some other models together, plus working with my lead modeler on getting some of the pirate forces ready. So then it kind of just left Karldra needing to be, which was the primary reason we were doing the campaign was for the Karldra faction to be added to the game. Pirates was one that was unlocked through the stretch goals. So we ended up getting a really easy and quick way that we could do the pirates. And then we're wrapping up the Karldra currently. So that campaign was great. Being able to go full time was great. And then I got an idea a few months ago for a new miniatures game that was, a new Revelations themed game that was intended to be a faster game, a easier to learn game, and a game that would be more accessible. Basically, a family member of mine has become wheelchair bound, and I wanted to create a miniatures game that made it more accessible for them to be able to play games like this. And because I realized how difficult it is for someone who can't stand to play a tabletop game like this. Like, I'm so used to miniature games, like, when I'm playing, I'm standing, right? Like the majority of the time I'm standing because I'm able to see all the information and process everything that I'm watching. I see where my opponent is moving their troops, and I'm able to kind of, at least have a decent guess of why are they moving over there? Oh, because they're trying to flank, or they're trying to push for the objective, or they're trying to push in real quick and finish off one of my damage units or something, whatever's going on. And I realized that if you're sitting, so much of the game you can't see because of a lot of us, when we play miniature games, we're playing with 3D terrain, right? And that creates a lot of blocking, which is really cool on the table, but it's extremely limiting for someone who's wheelchair bound. So I wanted to create, as I was kind of working on this other game, I wanted to be able to make it accessible for someone like that, at least more trying to go in that direction, because I haven't ever thought that way before. So it's a learning experience also. So I came up with Revelations Battlefield, which is, a faster paced game. You need less models to play. It's not as, it's more gamey, where like you're trying to score victory points by just being near objectives. That's in the standard game. You can fight your opponent's miniatures as well to get points, but you get the most points the fastest through the victory points. So you don't even have to be really good at, tactical analysis and how do I destroy all of my opponent's forces. You could just be good at, like, well, how do I protect my troops long enough for me to score enough victory points to win the game, and you win. And the accessibility front, I was able to accomplish by creating terrain templates. There's 8 different sizes right now that we have, and there's 3 different terrain types. We're going to add some more terrain types later, but right now there's just those 3. And on each of the terrain templates, they say how tall they are. They go by levels. So like something that's low level, it means, just affects infantry or vehicles really. Then you've got, level 1, 2, 3, 4, all that. And those different levels dictate how tall you would treat that piece of terrain when you're playing. So, and then every unit also has a height indicator on its stat card. So anything that's, level 1 would completely obstruct it. Level 2 would, obstruct level 2s and so on. So then that way, you're able to have a flatter game that allows someone who can't play like that, who can't stand, to be able to still see basically all the information on the table. Now, yes, it's not the same quite as being able to stand, but it's moving. Like I said, it's moving in those directions to try to be mindful of that. Now, you can play Revelations Battlefield with 3D terrain. And later, what we wanted to do was to provide official 3D terrain and they're going to be on the same sized template as the terrain template. So then that way, everything kind of stays standardized. You can make your own terrain if you want. You just need your opponent to understand and agree with, like, how are we going to treat this piece of terrain? What type of terrain is it? How tall is it? Just like that. So that way you guys know in advance. So there's no disagreements later once the dice start rolling. But we wanted to provide official ways as well as best we can moving forward. The other upside to doing terrain templates is that I feel that Battlefield could end up actually, and this wasn't something I set out to do, but is a game that could actually be more competitive than Skirmish. And by that, I mean, like, you're still playing on a 3x3 gaming space, just like with Skirmish. But the terrain templates, even if you're doing 3D or the templates, when I could make a scenario pack or an official event pack for like tournaments or something, and I could show this is where these types of terrain are going to be, this is the types of terrain to use, and then you could have the table set up extremely close to the official, scenario, and now you're experiencing the same sort of game as players all over the world, or all, throughout your event that's local. So I'm excited by something that I kind of stumbled into that maybe is something that might really help us down the road. Because typically with Skirmish, I've set out campaigns and scenarios and other things, mini campaigns, and I just kind of give like a rough guide, right? I say, you're fighting on such and such planet, try to have a bunch of hills and, rock croppings, or you're in a dense urban environment, so it's kind of just general descriptions. I can't really show you what the map would look like because I don't know what type of terrain you have. I don't know what size it is, right? There's all these kinds of factors that I can't control, but with the terrain templates, because they can be either printed from your regular paper printer or from your 3D printers, because we've provided the files as well. These are completely accessible to anybody, anywhere in the world, right? And, you print them on cardstock. They work just off your printer, or you FDM print them, you paint them or whatever you decide to do. From the printer, we've provided both just black and white and then also colored versions. So that way, if you want them to look a little bit better, yeah, you got them and you could laminate them. And then there you go. You have some pretty decent templates that were pretty affordable. And that's been another big thing about this, was not only the accessibility and trying to move in that direction, but was also trying to make things, more affordable. Because realistically, a lot of people are struggling right now, my family included. The economy, it's not great right now. And a lot of us are having trouble just making sure that, you cover all your bills and just eating. And maybe there's something left over at the end for entertainment. So I'm trying to be mindful of that as a studio and as a creator, to think like, lots of people are having trouble right now. There's plenty of people who are doing great, but there's a lot that are struggling. So to be mindful of that. So I think Battlefield has helped move in that direction. So right now what we're doing, just this morning, actually, as I record this, I launched the Revelations Battlefield Kickstarter. And I figured that it would be a good idea to kind of create this podcast episode in a sense to kind of highlight some of the things that I went through to get to this point of making this Kickstarter. And then if from community feedback, if you guys would like to hear more in depth of how did I create some of the rules or different things like that, I'm going to go into some of that here. But if you want to hear more of that, let me know. And I want to try to get back to this podcast. And one of the reasons that there had been the delay is I didn't want to keep repeating myself. A lot of this process sometimes for making games is boring, or it's just not exciting, or it's grindy. Like, there's not a lot of like, oh yeah, you just go out and do this and you're going to be wildly successful. there's a lot to it, and there's a lot of time in between things, and there's a lot of waiting, and then a lot of testing, and a lot of this and that. So I've felt like I covered some of the really big ideas, and I didn't want to end up whether repeating myself or going against my previous information. So I've been kind of hesitant to making new episodes. And then that's really been the thing. It's not because I don't like doing it. It's not because I don't like sharing information with you guys. It's just been, are the ideas for the new episodes worthy enough to take the time to sit down and not only record it, but then to feel good enough to put it out for you to listen to. So I wrote down a couple of questions to kind of help guide this episode. And because I didn't want to push off doing this anymore. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see on the screen this image that I've had up here this whole time is the starter kit for Revelations Battlefield. It includes 2 mechs, 4 vehicles, 4 drones, and 10 infantry, half of which is for the Core Republic, the other half is for the Faust Union. There's also 2 D10s, flexible measuring tape, a different measurement tool that I created specifically for Battlefield, which has a 1, 2, 3, and 4 inch measurement on it. It's an ease of convenience tool. It's a convenience tool for measuring simple little things, especially for doing in between terrain templates, for helping to set up your deployment zone, and also to measure, the effects or whether you're within range of an objective. So it's just to help with that. And then there's also like 28 acrylic tokens, I believe. So it's a nice little starter kit. And, there's a variety of things that are different between Revelations Skirmish and then Battlefield. But first, I figured it was a good idea to kind of get with the question of how did I design Battlefield? Maybe kind of just as like an overview. The overview idea, there was a game I used to play years ago. It was my very first war game, actually. And I loved that game so much. So much. It definitely changed the course of my life effectively. Like when I look back on it, because it exposed me to wargaming, it exposed me to a tabletop game with mechs and all that. So like it helped guide me in the direction that I now find myself as a developer. But that game's been gone for a long time. And I wanted to kind of resurrect it in a sense, not to copy it, not to, plagiarize anybody's systems or anything like that. But I wanted to be able to take the ideas that I felt were, that I enjoyed, and then modernize other components, and to also introduce a Revelations theme to it. And I feel that I've landed pretty much where I was aiming for. So with Battlefield, the purpose of it, like I said, is a more gamified game, while Skirmish is more of kind of a semi-simulation type, where Skirmish is extremely focused on company versus company, or 12 combat units versus 12 combat units, right? Plus you can have some drones. Yes, there are objectives, but the objectives in Skirmish are the attacker has their own objective and the defender has their own, and very rarely do they ever match. Usually they're 2 different things. And you might be able to complete your objective even though you lost in terms of casualties or something, but you still finished your objective. And that's with Skirmish. Skirmish also has order cards to help simulate, other assets that are off table, like aircraft or satellites or artillery strikes. So there's a lot going on there. Plus, without getting too much into the weeds of how that game works, every unit is going to activate at the end of a round on both sides, or it's going to be removed from play. With Battlefield was always intended to be faster, leaner, simpler. I wanted the game to be able to be really, really approachable for like 12 and older. And really, if you have a pretty smart kid who plays wargaming, because I've run into some of them, 10, maybe 9 could play it. I mean, really, all you have to do is be able to understand how the rules work together, and the stat cards. And the stat cards were specifically designed as well to be very simple, because I wanted this to be accessible for as many people as possible. And I wanted to remove a lot of the restrictions of it being more rules heavy. So with Battlefield, basically the way that a turn works is you're going to get 3 activations. Now you can break your units up into battle groups. War mechs can be in battle groups only with drones, but infantry, vehicles, and drones can all be in battle groups together. You can have a battle group from 2 to 5 units. And the battle groups is really how you're able to kind of optimize the formations, if you will, of your units. Because you're only going to get 3 activations every turn. So let's say on turn 1, you decide to go with your Sierra. You have your battle group of maybe it's only Marines. Then you have another battle group that's a couple of tanks and a drone. That will be your 3 activations, right, that you've chosen to use. And you could pick anything that you wanted on the table. But let's say you went with those 3. Then once you're done, it would be my turn. I do my 3. Now it's back to your turn. At the beginning of round 2, you start to score points if you're within the realm of the objectives. And you get more points for different objectives. So the one that's closest to you, because there's usually 3 in the standard game, the closest objective gives you 1 victory point. The one at the middle of the table gives you 2. And the one on my side of the table, if you can get there and hold it, gives you 3 victory points every time. So it helps you to kind of, push forward because you'll score more victory points to win sooner. But, based on how the casualties end up working, you can end up getting extra victory points because you've destroyed more units of your opponent. So that's more or less for that. When it becomes your turn again and you're activating, you get to activate 3 new units again, or 3 new battle groups, right? You get 3 activation tokens. If a unit already had an activation token from the previous round, you would leave it there. And then if you give them a second one, because now they're going in a subsequent turn, 2 turns in a row, they are now going to be exerted. And then that has different effects. So I tried to make it in a way where you have to be very selective of what units you're activating as you're moving forward. And it's going to go back and forth. The battle groups help you to kind of optimize things so that you're able to, move more units and activate more units all in one turn. And that way they can also all move together. They can all shoot together, and it helps kind of level up something that might be weak, like infantry, to now be able to actually be a genuine threat, because now they're combining, all their firepower with a big tank. So now that big tank is that much stronger when it's shooting. Beyond that, I simplified things. I took away the order cards. Those are not in Battlefield. You're activating, like I said, the 3 units per turn. The stats are now on stat cards rather than on stat profiles. The difference being they now fit on a actual playing card. There's way less keywords. All the stats are super clear and very easy to move forward. All units have a combined health pool. Infantry have been stepped down from having multiple bases that are part of their unit to being on one rectangular base. And I'm trying to think if there was another big rules change. Drones no longer have abilities that affect everybody within a range. Instead, they generally help only their battle group that they're part of. So this helps drones to still feel very much in their support role, but not be, helping a whole bunch of different other units. Because in skirmish, there are no battle groups. There's no formations. Each unit is its own unit. So the drones have to help, the team more or less in their zone, in whatever range their passive ability works in. But in Battlefield, everything's really about battle groups. So the drones will help their individual group. And you can also have units leave a battle group or join into another battle group and stuff. So there's ways to I've lost a couple of units. I want to form up one strong battle group, and then be able to use that going forward. So we made the stat cards. This is something that's different. On each stat card, to simulate the breakdown as you're taking damage, somewhere on the stat profile or on the stat card, there's a little white circle in a black box. What that means is that when you reach that point on their health pool, you will, unless they're immediately removed from play, you're going to flip the stat card over and there are different stats on the other side. They might be new keywords. They might have lost keywords. They might have had other stats start to break down and start to be less. They might do more damage, maybe less. It's all to simulate that these units are changing, partway through the game. and they're going to stay on the back side of the card for the rest of the game. So then this, kind of simulates taking damage, but still making things clear enough for, younger players to be able to kind of still follow what's going on. Right now, one of the things we're trying to do with the Kickstarter is get enough funding that we can upgrade our list builder site that we're using for Revelation Skirmish to also include Battlefield, where we would be able to have all the stats in one place. You'd be able to build your list for free, and then you're also able to print your stats for free. What you would then do is you would just cut them out, because it would be a long rectangle that's basically double the size of a playing card. You'd cut out that rectangle, fold it in half, slide it into a sleeve, and now you have a playing card sized stat card that is also, because it's in a sleeve, is now dry erasable. So now you're able to kind of track, things and be able to still use that stat card way into the future, because unless we update the stats, that stat card is still just as useful as a regular Sierra as it'll be on a regular Sierra moving forward. There's also some other bonus things that we put in there for the victory points. So like, unlike Skirmish, in Battlefield, you can mix your armies. You can use units from any force, when normally you couldn't mix factions. So in Battlefield, you're able to mix. You can take mercenaries if you want. Mercenaries don't affect your faction pure status. But basically, I had to create a penalty or a discouragement for those who wanted to mix from other factions, because I know people will want to, and I wanted to provide a way for them to. But those who are taking a faction pure list should have some sort of incentive to kind of not min-max their list, basically. Because I'm always trying to be mindful of, what is someone going to be trying to do to break this game? And sometimes stuff gets past you and you just update it. But generally I try to think of like, okay, well, how would I break this if I could? And with Skirmish, I knew that we had to be very careful with how many units were allowed to be chosen, how many combat units per list, right? So we had to control, because at the end of the day, you're going to be able to activate every single unit you have in Revelation Skirmish before the round is over. So if you took 100 Centurions, power armor infantry, that's so many activations. Like, you're absolutely going to just destroy the other guy 100%, because you just have so many dice. Even if you're only doing 1 damage at a time, you're just throwing so much at them, it's just going to wear them down, and they can't destroy enough Centurions fast enough to cut down your dice throwing capabilities. So I knew we had to put a unit cap in Skirmish. In Battlefield, we actually don't have a unit cap whatsoever. It's just based off of how many points you have available. Because if you decide to take 100 Centurions, for example, if you have the points to do so, you can still only activate 3 battle groups of Centurions. That at most can only be 2 to 5 units of Centurions. So at the very maximum in the standard gameplay, you're only going to be able to make use of 15 of those Centurions. And that's counting for movement, for attacking, if you want to perform like an evade or a target lock or anything else that you want to do like that. That's all part of it for them. So they're losing, you have a whole bunch of guys in your list that are being completely unused every turn because you have too many models. But on the flip side, if you would decide to take more war mechs or big tanks or something like that, or a combination thereof, you're now able to make sure that those units are probably being used every other turn and they're getting table use. So it's a totally different approach to list building between Battlefield and from Skirmish. So, and I love that, because now you're able to have 2 different mindsets, and really it makes the games feel fresh compared to each other rather than kind of feeling stagnant or too samey. Because I mean, that would be that leads me into one of the other questions I have here. How does Battlefield play differently than Skirmish? Outside of just the victory points, it comes down to list building. It comes down to what units might be more effective into the different battle groups. If you're building a battle group that you know you want to send to hold an objective, well, maybe it makes sense to put a shield drone in that one, right? And maybe it's worth taking, for the Republic, maybe it's worth taking a couple of Serpent hover tanks because they're very fast, right? And you're going to take 4 or 5 of them, and you're going to run down, you're just going to blast down to the enemy's objective point and try to hold that, right? Because they aren't anticipating you sending 5 hover tanks to just rush over. Now, those Serpents don't have a high health pool, but they're very fast, and they're able to get on the other side of the table in a turn or two. So now all of a sudden there's this new pressure on your opponent. I can't push too far forward. Now I have to counter, and deal with these Serpents. So it just changes the dynamics very differently than in Skirmish. And one of the things that I really wanted to try to do was to make sure that each unit from Skirmish translates well into Battlefield. And we absolutely do not have all the stats moved over yet. But my intention is, like I said, is to honor the Skirmish version. So then that way, let's say, you have an opponent who wants to play Battlefield, awesome. And then maybe next time you two are like, let's play Skirmish. It changes things up. Let's play that. I want you to still feel like, okay, the Sierra still feels reminiscent of a Sierra no matter what game it's in, rather than it being totally alien and totally different and be like, well, I really like the Sierra and Skirmish because it does XYZ, but in Battlefield, it's garbage. It doesn't do anything like that job. So I'm trying to make them feel reminiscent of each other so that it feels like, a natural progression, whether forward or backward, and not like a huge step down or a big change. And that's something that may be a challenge for me as the creator to kind of continue to work at as time progresses. But that's my intention. I'm also trying to make sure that they have the identical points. So then that way, if you do start to memorize the points on your, of your favorite faction, you'll be able to kind of list build going backward and forward because you'll know that they're probably about the same points. Now, I don't know if I'm going to 100% stick with that with Battlefield, but right now I am. Right now, I think that makes sense. And that's what I'm using as my metric to move forward. We'll see how that retains, but that's what we're doing. The other thing that we made sure of is that the rules are still free for both games. Battlefield is currently in beta, but the beta rules are totally available. We're on version 5 as of the recording of this podcast. I'm going to continue to work at that and try to get it up to 1.0 as soon as it's ready. I'm pretty much waiting for the list builder to be able to do that because that will change, information of like, well, how do I build my list? I need to make sure that's included in the rules. But the rules are I feel very polished. I've taken my years of experience designing the rules for Skirmish and I've applied it to Battlefield, and it's helped me to, accelerate that process dramatically. I also was kind of able to mimic the layout and the formatting, which also helped me to speed things up. So, because I didn't want to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. Like you're using the same IP, the same universe, the same brand, try to keep it so that it feels samey enough to move forward, backward, and everything, and not have to go and reinvest in a whole bunch of new assets and all these other things. It slows down the process, I feel, from the creation side, when at the end of the day, what do most players want? They just want a cool game. They just want cool models. They just want, fun rules that feel balanced, right? They just want it to be affordable, right? Whatever. They just want to play the game, or they just want to collect the models. They don't really want to get caught in the mundane of, well, technically the formatting seems, a little too similar here. They're from the same universe. It's okay. It's fine. And actually, speaking of that, because I don't think I mentioned this yet, you can use the exact same models from Battlefield and Skirmish. The only difference is that infantry are on different bases, but you can literally use the exact same juggernaut that you play with for your Faust Union forces in Skirmish. That exact same model with no modifications moves right into Battlefield. The only reason, because as I mentioned before, there was a change in the way that the infantry bases worked. In Skirmish, the special power, if you will, of the infantry is that each of their units are broken up into multiple based models. So like Marines are 2 bases, Centurions are 3, Conscripts are 3, so there's this division. So then that way the unit is able to do multiple, actions effectively every time it activates. But in Battlefield, I needed to make things simpler. So I needed to put them all into one base so that they didn't feel, all over the place. And then now you're having difficulty keeping track of which unit is with which, because again, Battlefield was intended to be played with a younger player base, but still have enough tactical variety in it that a veteran, experienced wargamer could play it again and again and still feel like, yeah, there's a lot more here for me to keep experiencing and trying out. So with the models being the same, my intention was that it would also make it very affordable, because now every time you buy one of our models, you're able to use it in 2 different games now. And you're able to maybe have people who maybe they're like, look, I I don't have time for skirmish. Skirmish is great, but I just feel like I have to spend more time like list building and getting caught up into things. But I'll play Battlefield because it's really fast, right? I can just kind of just dive right in and just get playing. And then you might have other people on the other side that are like, I like Battlefield, but I like the tactics, the variety of tactics and stats that are in skirmish. I really like that game. Great. Now you have models that can go back and forth. So I was hoping that that would help make it, at the end of the day, I have my own goals that I'm shooting for as a creator and as a writer. But at the end of the day, I know that I have to be able to make money in order to keep the lights on and to be able to keep doing this. And while I'm doing this full time right now, God willing, that continues into the months and years ahead. But I can't do it by myself forever. So I need other people to help. So I need to be able to have other sales, and other stuff going. So I'm hoping that with a new rules engine that kind of covers a different sort of demographic or player need than skirmish does, that Battlefield will provide that opportunity. And then if someone wants something that's a little bit more, tactical and a little bit more simulation-esque, or feels more reminiscent of the lore, translating Revelations to tabletop, that's skirmish, right? Battlefield is focused on being a game first. Skirmish is on, let's bring Revelations to the table. So that's pretty much how they're different than one another. I want the stats to be available for free, the rules to be for free, the list builder as we get that updated and upgraded for free. I feel that these components are something that I just want White Light Media to be known for, that we give away a lot of the game. And it's not because we're trying to just give it away. It's because I feel that it's more valuable to you as a player, right? To be able to make a decision, and the way to be able to make an informed decision is to be able to read the rules, see the stats, maybe you even, demo it or proxy a new unit and figure out if you really like it before you go and spend the money on something that you're going to hate. Because I don't like that as a gamer, right? Now that I've done things this way, and there's some other games that I've played that are similar-ish, but I see other game companies that are still doing it the traditional way, where you got to buy books or you still got to pay for the rules and this and that. And it's like, I don't want to pay you $25 for a rule set that I don't even know if I'm going to like. I definitely don't want to pay like 60 or 70 for a rule book that I have to go find a group to play with. I have to go find people that are interested. I have to go and, put the money in to buy the models and the terrain and all those other components. Well, we give away the stats and the rules because that helps get you that much closer to being able to, decide to jump in all the way. Now, I guess a good question that I wrote down was, why have two games with the same models? And I kind of covered that. My intention was that they're more affordable that way. It helps me to be able to have two different rules engines, right, to cover two different people, and I didn't have to invest in two different sets of the exact same model. Like, I don't have to rebuild the Sierra in order to have it in a 28 or a 32 mil size, because Battlefield and Skirmish both are played at the same scale. And that is a concern that I've looked at, is like, well, what if we played a larger sized model thing, but for like a squad game, like a fire team or something? That would be cool. And now I'd have to reinvest into the same models to get them rebuilt so that they have more detail, or you adjust the tolerances, or you adjust the file itself may have to just be rebuilt. So that's a lot of investment stuff that I would love to get to. But with Battlefield, we can kind of cheat and kind of squeeze in past that and be able to get going a lot faster. My long-term goal with Battlefield, I mean, it would be the same as Skirmish. We're still supporting Skirmish. Skirmish isn't going anywhere. Skirmish is still, I still love that game. It means a lot to me. I felt good. One of my concerns about doing like Warfleet or Field of Legends or other games was that now my time has to really be split. The development time has to be split. The playtesting time has to be split. The marketing and, they really have to be split. And I felt that, like with Battlefield, it was a way for us to be able to say we have a second game engine. Totally is true. That we're able to maximize the benefit of purchasing any of our models, because now it's going to be used, crosswise. Even the tokens, The tokens and the D10, those come right from Skirmish. We don't use as many tokens in Battlefield, but they come right from Skirmish. Measuring tape, is the same one. That the convenience measurement tool I was talking about, that can be used in Skirmish if you wanted, because you're just doing basic 1 to 4 inch measurements, so it just helps it's a convenience thing, it helps you. And this way I'm able to still support Skirmish fully because every model will be used in 2. My concern in being realistic is that there is a risk of confusing the market and confusing the player base of like, so I'm buying this war mech and this war mech is used in Skirmish. Correct. But I can also play it with Battlefield. Yes. Why would I want to use the same model in both games? And running into kind of questions like that. But I feel that as time goes on and the player base is more comfortable with that idea, that it will just be more accessible, right? And you could look at other games like you had is it Imperial Assault with Fantasy Flight Games, which was their Star Wars game prior to Star Wars Legion, their tabletop game before that. And then when Legion was being announced, people were, because I wasn't yet into Legion, because nobody was. I wasn't into Imperial Assault because I was playing a different game. And I had been looking at Imperial Assault with my brother because we both are fans of Star Wars, especially more so at the time before all the Disney stuff. But we were excited about it. And then we heard about Legion. We're like, perfect. This is what we want. We want more of like a war game rather than like, a small squad game. And I saw people from Imperial Assault being annoyed. Well, why do I have to go and rebuy the Legion models? Because now the Legion models are going to be at a different scale. You guys could have just used the Imperial Assault models and we would have just bought more of those, right? And then you could use them in 2 different games. And then you could have different heroes that maybe are only accessible in one, or you could do scenario packs for either game. And now that's a new thing that I'd buy to do those things, or terrain and whatever. But no, they decided to completely remodel the game, and maybe they had licensing and other things they had to do. But as far as from the player's perspective, that sucks, because if I already spent hundreds of dollars, into Imperial Assault, and I have all my Star Wars stuff and I've got it painted, and, my Stormtroopers and Darth Vader and all these other things. And then Legion comes along. They're like, here you go. Here's your Stormtroopers. Well, now I have to repaint all these Stormtroopers and repaint a Vader. And I have to have 2 different collections to play 2 different engines when they're from the same developer, and their scale isn't really that far off, because they could have just kept it the same. So we could have had 1 collection, 2 different games. But is that confusing for the market at the end of the day? I don't know. This is kind of an experiment to test, because I haven't really seen anybody do this, but it's been something that frustrates me as a gamer. So now in my position, I want to try it out and see how it goes. And, and then it'll be a future episode later to see if it was a good idea or just I fell on my face. But yeah, I'm still going to be supporting Skirmish, still going to be getting regular updates, still going to be getting, because, when we make a new unit, it does add a little bit of work for me, because now, we have to have both represented in both games. But, I get to paint the model. The one painted image that I promote with is now going to say for use with Revelations, Skirmish, and Battlefield. So then that way we're using the same image for both, because it's the same thing. And we'll have their own images for when we're doing a Skirmish game and when we're doing a Battlefield game, because the terrain will be different and whatnot. But there will be a little bit of ability to cross promote within the same player base. Now, some people might be wondering, well, why would you use Kickstarter for this project if you already have the models? Well, there's a couple of reasons that a studio like ours would want to use, Kickstarter. The one being, the primary one maybe, is to help get new funding, and maybe from new players, right? Because there's tons and tons and tons of people on Kickstarter that come and go every month that we would get exposure to that we couldn't get through our normal means of Instagram and Discord and Facebook and emails. So it gives us a way to reach a whole new group of people, potentially. The secondary thing is it helps us to get a big boost of money, hopefully, a big boost of money to reinvest into new things. There are some people who will never want to pay full price for a game because they could get it cheaper from Kickstarter, or they They wouldn't, they're not really interested in hunting down all these things. They're looking for deals. They're looking for STLs for other games they play, but they want your STLs to go play that game. So they get it at a discount, and then they're going to go play that other game anyway. That's fine, because maybe that was money I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. It's a sale I wouldn't have gotten, but I was able to, make use of those resources to be able to move forward with other projects, other artwork, other, whatever. And I feel I have it's not love hate, but I have it's more of a love and sadness of Kickstarter, because as I've discussed in other episodes, it frustrates me as a small developer in a small studio to have to compete against these really big monolithic titans in the industry that have, that raise several $1,000,000 per project on Kickstarter or GameFound or other platforms. And it's like, we need this money. And I know people can defend it and say, well, they need it too. And they have teams of people and they have to spend all that money to do research and development. And I get that. And it's still a bit of feeling conflicted. But if at the end of the day, it's better for the player, I can't complain too hard, right? Because I get it. I'm a player, too. So like I get wanting to find discounts or wanting to support new projects that maybe wouldn't exist without some funding. I get that. But in our case, we're using it to help generate new funds to kind of move forward with things, and also to help me be able to stay full time. One thing that I learned from the last Kickstarter was for Skirmish was that we picked a whole bunch of projects. I did. There's no one to say we. I picked a whole bunch of projects that I was super excited about for like Karlja and the Pirates and some other stretch goal things that I was really excited about because it was going to add a bunch of new models to the game. And then I ran into issues with getting fulfillment done from the creation side. People that I hired either fell through with their deals, so we couldn't get the model done with that person. There were people who got sick. There were people who had other reasons, that real legitimate reasons that they had to step away. But I continuously ran into errors and barriers to be able to move forward. And it was extremely frustrating, extremely frustrating, because I get it. Just like as a player, I want, if I'm putting money into your Kickstarter, I want it as quick as possible. I don't want you to cut corners. I don't want you to make it a bad project or a bad product at the end, but I want you to faithfully and diligently move forward, make progress, and deliver. And we've had delays on the Karlja side, and that has caused delays on fulfillment for the people who back for the Karlja part. And there wasn't anything I could do about it because I'm not really a modeler. But through that, I have actually begun to learn how to model. I've used those skills to make the majority of the work done on the terrain templates that we use in Battlefield. I made the measurement tool, the convenience measurement tool, and I've also modeled the power armor, which is the infantry for the Karlja forces. And pretty soon we're going to start doing the print testing for that. I modeled that completely myself, and then I handed it to my lead modeler to kind of finish the last 3%. He helped a couple little bits here and there as well, but I mean, the majority of the work I did. And I don't, like, if you were to straight up just ask me, like, Rick, do you feel very comfortable as a modeler? No, 100% no. It's very intimidating. But I kind of got to a place of like, we got to get this done, and I don't have an unlimited budget, and the players need it, right? So I started learning. I started dabbling a little bit to move forward, and I felt that the infantry was something that I could do because of my experience in using a modeling program recently, 3ds Max, for the last couple of months on and off, and kind of dabbling with some posing and some other things. So I kind of felt like if I could do a project, it would be an infantry or a power armor, because it's basically just a little mech. And I know how to pose the mechs now, so I think I can do this. And and having guidance, I could kind of move forward. And I feel proud about where it is right now. And I'm looking forward to seeing it, and holding it, because it's something I did, right? But it wasn't something I wanted to do. If you were to ask me 6 months ago, are you looking forward to modeling your very first infantry model? I'd be very perplexed. Like, why? I'm going to pay someone to do that. I'm not doing it. Why would I learn that? And it's just, it was birthed out of necessity. And the risk that I feel is I don't want to take more, I don't want more hats. I already wear way too many hats. So many hats that I can't even get all the work done in a normal day or a normal week. So I don't want to take more on. But I also, as the person where, the buck stops with me, if the project fails, it's my fault. I have to move forward. So I'm learning skills to be able to move forward. Do I anticipate that I'm going to be the, someone who's modeling multiple mechs a year coming up? I really hope not. And it's mostly because I've got so much stuff to do. There's stuff that nobody else can do but me. So I'd rather do those things and hand off the things that I'm super not really skilled at. Now, if it continues and I like modeling and I want to continue to do, certain projects here and there, sure, I'm not afraid of it. I recognize that it will require several years of regular work to become proficient and skilled at. And, I'm concerned about, keeping the studio going and keeping the lights on and making sure that I have enough pay every month to pay myself because, I have a family. So that's like my primary focus rather than on the artistic side. And at the same time, I want to continue to expand the game. I want to be able to reach new players. I want to be able to finally finish and tell more stories and revelations, because that's the big thing that I want to do. I don't want to learn how to do the illustration art or the concept art or the character art, or, if I'd ever formatted another page in my life and I just wrote the pages and handed it to someone who's a formatting expert, I would love that. I don't want to deal with making all the images and all the social media posts because it's a lot of work. But I'll do it if it means that that's what I have to do to keep moving forward. They just don't delight me. I don't get anything out of it. I don't get super excited. But it's the necessity, right? It's like you love having children, but you don't like changing diapers, right? But it's the part of it. You don't like fighting with your kids at bedtime, but you love having children and you love being able to share experiences with these little people and everything that comes with parenting. But there's parts of it that are not glamorous, that are grindy, that are boring, that are not fun, that are just not enjoyable. But you have to have those parts too to be able to do what you want to do, which, in my case, wanted to have a family. So that's part of it. And it's the same as having pets or having other hobbies or working out or anything. Everything has parts of it that we don't enjoy, and it's just the nature of existence. We have things that we don't like and we have to do them because that's what big boys and big girls do, right? You just got to do it. So I'm really looking forward to the Kickstarter and hoping that it's very successful, because I have some pretty big stretch goals for it. I got another question that I wrote here. It says, how did you prepare for this Kickstarter compared to other campaigns you've done? A better comparison for this campaign with Battlefield would be the original Kickstarter for Skirmish. And with the original one, I didn't have an example of the stats, I don't think. I don't think we had moved forward with that yet. I think we were waiting for the money to come in to be able to move forward with it. So I didn't have something that was done. With Battlefield, I don't have a list builder, but I have stat cards that are totally designed. I feel they look very professional, and I'm very proud to put them in front of anybody. The other difference is the rulebook is entirely formatted. All of the skills that I learned over the years of promoting Skirmish, I've been able to fold right into Battlefield in terms of the photography, painting, the quality of my social media posts. But I'll be honest that this time has been very difficult in some regards, because it seems that there's been a little bit of a lull in the activity of the community. And I've been trying to figure out for months, is that due to me? Is it due to the economy? Is it due to, you get in your own head? Do people not like Revelations and all this work and everything you did not really matter? I would not say it's a good thing that your brain pretty quickly goes to a dark spot, but that's kind of just how mine works. I'm very, very judgmental of my own work and very judgmental of myself. Um, if you could avoid that, if you're younger and you can avoid that, please do. It's not always fun, but you know, I tried with the Kickstarter page for Battlefield to make it as professional as I could, um, to try to anticipate questions that people may have. And you know, one of the questions I ran into immediately, as of this morning when I launched the campaign, I had backers who had pledged on the previous campaign asking for like, well, where's my, I never got my files. Well, they never, I had already emailed them instructions months ago. They didn't see it. So I had to go back through and get them helped out. That's part of the customer service side of things that you got to do. I had another backer who was questioning why there wasn't a loyalty tier, so to speak, so that the people who backed us the last time, which was a few months ago, I mean, it was in November, when they backed us previously, this new campaign has more models than before, but it has the same ones as last time, but it has more. I've added several hundred more dollars in value to this campaign. Why do you not have a loyalty tier? And I had to make the decision that I don't want to confuse new backers or people who maybe didn't back at the big mega STL bundle in the last one, that now you're only going to get partial. And then I'm going to run into people that are upset. Well, I didn't know that I paid for only part of it. I saw the picture and the picture showed me all of them. So I thought I was paying for all of them. So I just simplify it. You can back at the new tier, the big mega bundle tier, and we've added $200 more in STLs, and it's $100 for the entire thing. So if you never had any of our models before and you backed at that mega bundle, I think I did the math and it comes out to like $680-ish in value. So that's a lot of money that value that you're getting for $100. But even if you've backed us before, you're still getting $200 of value immediately. And you're only putting in 100. So yeah, we don't have the loyalty, but I mean, we're a small studio too. You know, you giving $100 helps us a lot, really. And we're only actually getting 90 of that right away because of Kickstarter and their processing fees. So we're already down to 90, which, like, well, it's $90. Well, yeah, it's $90 that, we have to put into the big pot to try to pay the other artists that work with me and to keep everything moving. So it's always difficult in the sense that, and this could be its own episode, of what is the right call, because I try to anticipate player needs and customer desire and customer satisfaction. And I'll still run into people who are upset that, well, where's my files? How am I supposed to know you didn't read your email from several months ago, right? Like, I don't know. There's plenty of people who've backed other Kickstarters that we've done. Not plenty, there's been a couple who I post numerous updates. I send out emails. I'm very active in my Discord community. Like, I make updates all the time. And if you don't take part in any of those and you don't check your email, because you get an email from Kickstarter when we send out updates. So if you don't read those updates, I don't know what you don't know. And I'll get people who, I had one guy who this was for several Kickstarters back. He had backed, and this was one we made sure was only digital. It was an only digital campaign. He backed for the largest number of models that you could get, STLs. And he messaged me after a year of the campaign being over, and we had already fulfilled everybody. Everyone was done. I guess except for him, but we had done our part as best we could. And I had made a final update like, hey, Kickstarter's about ready to lock my backer report. Like, we've sent out emails, we've sent out updates. Like, this is it. We're done, right? We've done everything that we can to fulfill everything. And then this guy contacted me after a year of the campaign being done. So I'm already locked out of my backer report. And he was furious because he's like, where are my models at? I never got shipped my models. And I'm like, well, they're only digital. No, I'm supposed to have physical models. And he went and checked, and then he came back and he apologized that, no, I guess yeah, they were only supposed to be digital. So that was an instance where I had done everything I could to make it very clear through the campaign it's digital only. We fulfilled the file part, and then you still have those customer service moments where you can't lose your cool and you have to just answer respectfully because you don't know how they perceive the information. But at the end of the day, you can only do so much, and you're going to still run into people who are frustrated that you didn't do more or didn't do things the way that they think that you should have, or you didn't price things the way that they thought you should have. And it feels that sometimes like it's a crapshoot. Like you don't know what's going to work. You don't know how it's going to be received. You don't know who's going to support you. You don't know. There's so much you don't know. And that in the moment when you're trying to make these decisions and move forward with these projects, and in my case, this is now my income. This is my livelihood. So seeing a lull is scary, right? Because with less activity, everything, you kind of figure out, and it's when you've come from getting your paycheck from other people, you know how that works. And then when it switches to like, it's on you, it's new, at this level, with a family. So it'll be difficult at times as you're developing your own game and moving forward. Maybe you're already ready to do the Kickstarter, or you've already started doing that or whatever, but, you'll have different challenges as you're trying to figure out, how do I navigate this? What is the right decision? How much should I charge for this? And then you have to fight those feelings of, well, I know that, we'll just throw a number out. It cost me $10 to develop this product. To like, maybe it's a physical thing. Like it cost me $10, and however you've broken up your numbers, that $10 covers what you need it to cover. And then you have extra room for a actual profit or a beginning of recouping expenses that you took in development of this product. And you have to fight these feelings of, okay, well, it cost me $10, so I'm going to sell it for 20, and I'm keeping 10. 10 goes back into paying me back for the investment I made. Maybe $10, maybe part of that $10 goes to paying you. So from each model or each unit or each book, right, you get a portion of that towards your pay, or maybe some other fund that you want to use for new equipment or new investments or whatever. And you have to fight these feelings of being, I don't know, maybe everyone won't run into this. Maybe it's a lot of just me, but running into being upset with like, I feel like I have to legitimize to myself that whatever the profit margin that I've set on that product is okay. And that I know I'm not charging Games Workshop prices. I know that I'm not, constantly trying to come up with a new book, new rule book, or new whatever to force my players to buy a new thing just to make them buy a new thing. Like I know I'm trying to make them get as much value as they can. And you do run into situations where you almost feel guilty for charging whatever you feel is appropriate. And like you got there because you were being realistic or you were being thoughtful. It wasn't like, yeah, it cost me 60 cents to make this thing and I'm going to charge $100, right? Where like the differences are exorbitant. But, when it takes whatever your percentage that you feel comfortable with, but those feelings do come up. Right. And it happens also with Kickstarter. It's just part of the nature of being a business owner and being a creator is that you're going to have to deal with those thoughts and feelings, and you have to figure out what is the best way for you to move forward. And you have to give yourself grace, as hard as that can be, that you might make a mistake and you're going to learn from it and you're going to be better for it. And you're not going to let it destroy you. And I think a lot of that, you get a lot of grace from your community with how you interact with them. Like I try to really set the bar that I'm going to be respectful, that I'm going to be considerate. I'm going to try to, to go above and beyond at times to be able to help a customer. Or I try to maximize value for every unit. We try to, I make sure that the units that came out in the very beginning of the game, the Sierra, the Mars, the Marines, that those ones, like when it's needed and I feel that they're kind of lagging behind other units, I update their stats or I give them a new keyword, whatever it is to kind of make them feel relevant. We've updated all 3 of those models so that they were better than what they were before. that the infantry print better, that the Mars looks cleaner and more in cohesion with the rest of the Republic, and that the Sierra got a huge overhaul. That was a huge investment that I could have used to make an entirely new model, and I gave it away for free afterwards to the people who've already purchased the Sierra files, because that's what I would want. You know, I would want to be a community in a member in a community where the developer was thinking about the group. You know, maybe not me individually, but they were thinking about me as a player and trying to make sure I had, you know, updated tools and models, and you know, that they keep the game feeling relevant and fresh, and they keep trying to keep at it and keep improving things. And that's what makes me feel comfortable, you know, setting prices. I think charging predominantly $7 or $6.99 for an STL is fair when I'm investing. You know, I don't even consider my own time still. Even doing this full time, I don't even consider my time. My time is however much time it takes to get that thing done. That's it. I have to be mindful of when other people are involved with me, because that has to do with a budget. But, you know, whether I put 1 hour in a month or 200, right? Like, that doesn't change one way or the other for my pay. What changes is, you know, when it comes to the budget for dealing with the artists. So I still don't even consider my own development time. I mention it, but I don't dwell on it, because how am I supposed to price that when I'm focused right now on just keeping the lights on, right? Like, if I got so caught up into how much I need to pay myself, I wouldn't be able to do this, because, you know, it's not being fairly paid back yet. And that's just the way it is. But that's the sacrifice you have to make when you're developing something, and then moving it forward. So all that to say, it sounds like it's not positive, but it's me learning how to come to grips with certain things, and things don't move on the timetable you want. Like, I started developing this in 2019. We are almost at the 5-year mark. Actually, we may have just passed it. The 5-year mark of developing Revelations as a tabletop game, because we launched it in 2020 for Skirmish, but we were in development in 2019. And we're coming up on the 4-year anniversary of Skirmish very soon. And it's been a heck of a ride, but I would definitely like to have been in a different spot. I'd like to have, 10,000 players and all these marketing deals and all kinds of other stuff set up. But it's just not been the reality of things. But I keep at it and keep trying to develop more and keep trying to move forward, because you don't know when it's finally going to click. So I'll have some more to say about the Kickstarter itself once it's done. If you would like some more information on, because it's more fresh in my mind of how did you design the rules for Battlefield, like ask me in the community, and maybe it'll be worth making an episode. I do want to, encourage that if you've had an idea on your mind for your own game, there's ways to be able to find a cheaper solution to move forward. I mean, in a way, Battlefield is mine, because to do Warfleet, for example, which is a Revelations space naval combat themed game, I haven't developed Warfleet all the way yet. I started to work on it, and then I started realizing how much it was going to cost, and I had to kind of pull back a bit because money wasn't coming in the way that I thought it was going to, or I didn't have artists the way that I thought I was going to. So I definitely still want to do it, but I have to be realistic that I don't move forward when I'm not ready to. But Battlefield was a way for me to slide kind of horizontally, to make a new game, develop, exercise that muscle of development and marketing and everything else, but to really kind of optimize the assets I already had, that I could already make a new game off of them. And for you listening, you probably don't have a game yet. You're probably still developing all those parts, but figure out a game engine that you feel that you could do on a budget. And whatever that budget is, because you might have $100,000 you can spend on it, or you might have $100. So if you only have $100, you got to be really smart about how you move forward. And there's ways to come up with games that are very low budget. I don't want to continue to extend this podcast too far, but I developed a card game. It's a family card game that I came up with the rule set in like literally 14 minutes. I sat down, I felt inspired. The challenge to myself was get it done, I think in 15 minutes. And I got it done before that. And I haven't made 100 different rule sets or something. That it was just something that clicked, and I was able to like really hustle it out really, really fast. And that's a game that I want to move forward with, and be able to develop other types of games. Now, but that is one that is going to be extremely low budget at the end of the day in terms of what I have to need to put into it. It's not going to need character art and all these other things. It's going to need some artwork, but not anything that's bananas level of thousands of dollars. And it just makes me really see that like it's totally possible for someone to want to get into game development and can do it affordably. You just have to be creative enough and patient enough and willing to explore and try out ideas so that you can kind of stumble into something. And I've got a couple other ideas I'd like to move forward with, but I knew part of it was I needed to secure funding for the studio through Battlefield. And God willing, that happens within the next couple of weeks. And if it does, depending on what level that we hit, I do want to move forward with some other ideas that are in Revelations that I've had floating around for a while, but we needed to have funding available for me to be able to do it. Plus, I wanted to make sure I developed Battlefield all the way and I didn't get sidetracked on these other ideas. So I forced myself. I can still feel the idea wanting to bubble to the surface. But I'm like, no, you have to stay suppressed until... Which I don't like doing with creative ideas because a lot of them can disappear, right? If you don't write them down, if you don't process them and think them through, like you could lose them. This one's been lingering around. So maybe it's something really cool, really special, but I don't want to get into it until I knew that Battlefield was ready. So that way I could step away and do something new without feeling like I was abandoning, trying to get a bunch of people to buy a product that I'm going to abandon. I'm not doing that. It needs to fully be in place so that because like with Skirmish, that's in place. I can step aside and do a new project and Skirmish still works, right? There's nothing there. So I've got other ideas that we can get into in future episodes, but I appreciate you guys for listening. If you've been with me since the beginning, I really appreciate that. And I'm excited for the direction of things moving forward, and I'm hopeful that there'll be relevant and positive content to be able to share with you guys in the near future. Talk to you later.